Hello and welcome to the show. So normally on these rivalries we have some very fast supercars, we race them against each other, or hypercars, or maybe even some sort of classic race cars, but we tend to take sort of the fastest, most exciting cars from Forza 4 and compare them or race them or drive them around a lap of our track. However, today things are going to be a little bit different. We're looking at some of the subcompact American cars. I think they've got that category right. It's a little bit confusing. This is sort of the equivalent of a European Super Mini. These cars are relatively old. We're talking sort of the 70s. And we start with this, the AMC Gremlin in lovely, lovely pink. Like all of the words in the English language, and you try to name your car Gremlin, that sort of confuses me. That comes across as sort of a very negative name, I would have thought, for a car, which is a little bit weird. But yeah, it's a silly name for this thing. I don't mind this car so much. The reason why we have this car on its own, there are two more to come, is because this is the fastest of the three by a fair margin. It has a 5-litre V8 engine to start with, which sounds a lot, I have to say. I was impressed it had that engine. However, it only has 151 horsepower, which isn't a lot at all. How you get so little horsepower out of such a big engine, I don't know. That's like less horsepower than a Fiesta, and that doesn't make sense to me. How you could get... What are all the extra capacity and cylinders doing? Oh god, I don't quite get how that engine works. It does have 245 torques, but still, that's not very powerful for such a big engine. This is an F-Class car, and I was amazed actually, like with that engine in it, that it's so low class and it's not particularly fast. 0 to 60 is just under 10 seconds, which is okay, but it will only go on to a top speed of 111, and it does struggle to get there. No, it's not the fastest car in the world. Not the most exciting either. I mean, yeah, it's an F-Class car. What are you expecting? It is 5,000 credits, so it is fairly cheap. To drive, it is okay. It is a little bit wallowy, and as I go off the track, the brakes aren't fantastic. I'm going to be honest. It's not the most amazing car in the world to drive. There are much better sort of Super Minis hatchbacks, like the Golf Mark II. Not Mark II, Mark 1 probably. I think that's an F-Class car. Much better than this, even though this has a bigger engine. Yeah, but it is still relatively fast. Compared to these, this is the AMC Pacer. This is a little bit of a weird one, actually, because this car is actually quite big. Sort of width-wise, it's really quite a wide car and short car, and it's weird proportions. It's a very strange one. When you see it compared to the Pinto that comes up in a minute, this is a very weird car. Styling is, again, interesting. Is the word I'm going to use on this one. It's a little bit different. I read somewhere on the internet it was nicknamed the fishbowl. Kind of makes sense. There is an awful lot of glass in it. Yeah, the styling is a little bit different. I kind of like cars that try something a little bit different. Don't just be sort of generic and boring. This one is weird. I'm going to be honest. It doesn't quite have as big an engine as the Gremlin. This is a 4.2 litre inline 6. I think I've got the right one. It's very hard to tell on Forza. Now, the one we're going to compare it to is this, the Ford Pinto. This, yes, I know what that means in Portuguese, by the way. If you don't, then no, don't. Actually, I was going to say Google it, but don't Google it. Just don't do that. I'm sure somebody will say. This is, again, it is a very similar sort of class to the Gremlins. Similar sort of idea. Have a much smaller car. It isn't anywhere near as powerful. It has a 2-litre engine, for example, only 85 horsepower. However, it doesn't weigh very much, 2,200 pounds. So the fact that it doesn't have anywhere near as much power doesn't really mean it's as much of a disadvantage, because it just weighs very little. Neither of these cars are particularly fantastic looking, I'm going to be honest. Neither of them are particularly fantastically exciting, because they are both F-Class. I think the Pinto is actually the lowest of all the PI cars. Like when you line in the garage in PI order, the Pinto is at the very bottom of F-Class. However, to try and make them a little bit more exciting, we are going to have a race. And as you can see off the line, because of its sort of light weight, the Pinto does get a little bit of an advantage. However, the Pacer is slightly more powerful. I believe it has 121 horsepower and sort of 200 torques. So it is no surprise that as it comes out of the first corner, it is ahead. You can see here, look at the size difference. It's really weird. I'm going to be honest. When you look at the Pacer in the garage, when you look at pictures of it, it doesn't look sort of anything weird, I guess. I mean, the styling is a little bit different, but when you compare it to something else, it's so weirdly proportioned. It's quite hard to explain. or describe, probably a better way of putting that. But when you look at it next to Pinto, you can kind of see. Now, these are not the most exciting cars in the world to drive. They are a little bit wallowy. In the case of the Pacer, actually, it's quite heavy, £3,000. I do apologise if I end up calling the Pacer Gremlin at some point and don't realise, because I've been doing that and I can't always remember. I just get these two confused, okay? It is quite a heavy car at £3,000. For something this size, that is rather heavy. I mean, yes, it has a bigger engine than the Pinto, sort of physically bigger engine. Look, it's going sideways. I was kind of sliding it. There may have been a little bit of contact there. But yeah, it's a heavy car. It isn't the easiest thing in the world to control. It is faster in a straight line than the Pinto. As you will see, as we get to any sort of straights, it will start to gradually pull away. But because of the weight around the corners, the Pinto is a little bit better. Neither of these would keep up with the Gremlin. They're just not as fast as it. Through the corners, neither of these two are particularly good. You can see the suspension is a little bit wallowy, and this is probably the slowest race in the history of mankind. Because, yeah, these two cars are not particularly quick, but as you can see, they are relatively evenly matched, and it's quite a close race as a cone just appears in the screen. I don't know, that was a really long delay for that cone to appear. I don't know where it came from. Anyway, as we go on to the final lap, the final part of the final lap, we did sort of a 3-lap race with these. I have to say, credit to these cars, this was surprisingly fun. No, I don't think we ever got above 100 miles an hour in either of these. We may have done just about as we came to the braking bit down here. It wasn't a particularly fast race, but it was kind of fun. They were quite closely matched. The Pacer was a little bit quicker on the straights, but the Pinto had the sort of ability through the corner. As you can see there, it catches me up through that corner as I ended up going sideways again. I'm amazed at such little power that this thing was going sideways. As we come to the final corner, it's going to be side by side. It's not good. You don't want to go side by side through there normally, and that was very close. And there we go. They are both across the line. That was incredibly close finish. I can't remember the exact times, but I think it was about 0.02 of a second difference in our sort of finishing times. So yeah, it was a very close race. Surprisingly fun, I have to say, for such, well, slow cars. Out of the three of them, well, yeah, the Gremlin is by far the fastest and probably the best handling. And I would say probably the better looking if you don't have it in bright pink, but a very silly name. Of the other two, I probably prefer the Pinto just because it's a bit lighter and a bit easier to drive. The Pacer is okay, but for an F-Class car, I wouldn't have any of these three, to be honest, because they are, yeah, they're not the most amazing things in the world, but they aren't the worst car in Forza. That honour still goes to the Beetle because that's atrocious. So, there we go. That is it for this rivalry today. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, leave your suggestions in the comment section as to which rivalry, rivalry, there we go, I know English, we should do next week, and we will pick our favourites and it'll be in a video. However, until then, goodbye.